Imagine you found the perfect home. It's in a gated community, spacious clubhouse. You can see yourself living there. Then you'll learn what it costs in maintenance fees. The ongoing cost of ownership is now one of the biggest considerations for today's shoppers. What do you have to know before you buy? Well, let's ask Wink News real estate expert Denny Grimes about this. This is sort of that hidden fee, Denny, you don't always think about, and sometimes if you don't factor it in, you're going to end up short on cash every month.
It used to be simple. You as a buyer coming in 10 years ago, we'd talk about PITI, the acronym for Principal, Interest, Taxes, and Insurance.
Right.
Now in the multiple listing service, we have a dozen more fees that a buyer has to consider.
Oh my gosh.
So it's something for a buyer to be aware of. And what I want to go through is kind of a list of things that buyers should know and a point or two for the sellers. The first point I want to make is if you're out there buying, there's only two types of ownership. There's condominium ownership and fee simple, which is single family. Now, I know developers have a lot of fancy names, townhouses and villas, and there's only two types of ownership. The reason a buyer should know is because if it's going to be a condominium, just trust me, that your fees will be higher.
Much higher.
Yes.
Because you're paying for all the common space and you don't have the yard to take care of, so you're paying for somebody already to take care of that automatically.
That's right. And the other thing, there's two types of fees. There's the one-time fees, which I call the fist fight fees, and they're not chump change because that's the fees you pay. Generally, the buyer pays at closing. And for the newer communities, they can run from $1,500 to $8,000. And so a lot of times these fees aren't discussed up front, so you can understand why it becomes a fist fight fee.
Yeah. So and you negotiate those. You can try to fight them out, maybe, or not.
Well, no, you better know that before you sign the contract. Right. The other, besides the one-time fees, the recurring fees, and this is your maintenance fees, your master association, your club fees, your rec fees, your food minimums, etc. And on average, you're looking at $1,000 to $2,000 a month for those types of recurring fees. So that can put a dent in someone's budget if they weren't planning on it.
And these have been going up of late too, haven't they? In some neighborhoods you're seeing where it's becoming a problem.
Right, right. And it goes into the major drivers of the cost, and basically the three major cost drivers are going to be if there's golf course, basically if there's a town center or an amenity center. And golf is basically kind of a little bit on the dying side. There's not as many golfers, and so if you happen to be a seller in a community that has high mandatory golf fees, that could penalize you a little bit for today's buyer because they don't necessarily want to play golf or pay a lot of money if they're not going to play very often. So sellers have to kind of capitulate to the market. Buyers should understand the types of amenities and the fees that they have going into it. And if a buyer doesn't want any kind of homeowners fees, then they can go. There's plenty of areas in Southwest Florida, particularly the old areas that have voluntary associations or no association whatsoever. And so you can control your fees that way.
But as the buyer, this is a question to not skip asking. Know what those fees are and what they'll cost you.
Know up front because it becomes a problem later on. And if the property could be in a good location, if the fees are high, it's bad news.
It could be. Thank you, Denny. Good advice. Wink News will be right back.